Hello, this video will get you started on project number 5. In this video we will create a two-way table and then generate some bar graphs and pie graphs, and then we're going to get started with a document. So what we have here is our serial data, and remember that our serial data was from the beginning of the semester. You can always make a copy if you need to. And then the other thing that I like to do is I like to make an extra copy of the sheet and duplicate it in case something goes wrong with the sheet that I'm working with. Okay, so I've selected my Project 5 sheet and my copy of the serial data. Now I want to highlight the two categorical variables that I want to include in my table. I want to highlight target and shelf. Now I can just highlight the columns, but if I scroll down here I'll see that there's going to be a bunch of blank cells that will be also highlighted. So instead I only want to highlight the non-blank cells that I have. So I select target and I go to the last element in my shelf. I'll shift click, and now I've highlighted everything in those two columns that I need without highlighting the blank cells. And now I'm going to create my table. So I'm going to go to data and pivot table, and then it's going to set me up with a page here, and the page will ask for my rows and columns and values. So let's fill in the rows. Because I only highlighted the target and shelf, that's the only thing it's going to want, so I will select target for my row columns, and then you can see that it's ordered in ascending order, so adult and then child. I can switch to order if I want, but I'll leave it like that. I will go to the next one, columns. I will select shelf, and that's the only option I see there. And then now I can see my two-way table built up already. I don't see any numbers in there yet, but let's leave it at that for now. The way to throw in the numbers in there is to add values. So the field that I want to use is either target or shelf again. I'll just select target. Either one would give us the correct values that we want. Now notice that these are zeros, so I'm still not the correct value. What it's trying to do is it's trying to add up any numerical values you have in the target. Now unfortunately we don't have numerical values, so we want to count the cells that have bottom, middle, and top in them. And so we're going to use count A for that. And now we have our numbers built in. Now notice a few things. There's a blank here in the top. We will have to manually put in a 0 in there because there's no child cereals in the top shelf. There's also some lines missing. Now we can leave it like that because a lot of people would be able to read it that way, but if you really want to include the lines, you can highlight your whole table and then go to more, and then there's this symbol over here for borders. If you click on that, you can border just the outside or just the inside, or border the whole thing. So I'll click on border the whole thing, and now everything's bordered. Okay, so that's our contingency table, our two-way table. Now before we create a pie graph, I want to show you how easy it is to create a bar graph as well, especially for a bar graph where we're comparing two different quantities for the adult and child. And so I will go ahead and highlight just the body of the table, including the headers, but not including the grand totals. So this will involve both the adult and serials together in one graph. And I go to insert and chart, and then the default chart that it's going to give me is a bar graph of a comparison between the adult and child serials that are set in the bottom, middle, and top shelves. So it came out really nice and easy and simple and basic, and we see the chart with the legend and everything else that's needed to be able to read this chart. Okay, so we'll put this away for now because we're more interested in making a pie chart. So to do a pie chart, you're going to need to have the data set for the adult and the child serials separately. Now there's going to be a way to highlight the headers and the child serials separately by using a control click. So I can highlight the headers and then the child serials using my control click, and then I see that they're highlighted without highlighting the adults. Now that could be a little complicated, so my suggestion was to just copy the whole table. So I gotta copy the table, and then I'll just move it a few cells down, and then I'll paste it here, and then now I have a copy of this table. And what we're going to do is, instead of trying to highlight the header and the child serial by itself, we're going to make our adult data disappear. So if I click on adult and right click, and there's a hide row option that hides the row, so now I can just click and drag and highlight the child. Alright, let's create our graphs. So for this, well, after we make a copy, we're going to go to the original table and select the cells containing the header row and the first row. So this is the header row, and this is the first row with adults. We're not going to highlight the grand totals in the columns or in the bottom. And once we have that highlighted, let's go to Insert Chart. And then already we have the adult serial chart set up for us. We have the percentages calculated for us automatically, and if you want to change any of this settings, you can go to customize and mess around and see what kind of things you can do. You can change colors, you can change the percentages to something else, you can adjust the title, etc. So let's put this aside. Now for the child serial, let's take the table that where the adult serial was hidden. So let's copy, or let's select the top row again, and the header row, and then the first row, and then go to Insert Chart, and then we have our serial pie chart for the child serials. Okay. Alright, now that we have that all set up, we will go to our drive again and select project number 5 and get our headers written up, the title and the research question. So below the research question, we want to include the table and the charts. So to get the table in, we simply copy and paste the table that we have. So go back to your Google Sheets, let's copy this, and then let's go to Project 5 Doc and paste it. And it's better to paste it linked to the spreadsheet, so that if you make any changes to the spreadsheet, it'll make the adjustments. Now notice that this is 0 here, that didn't show up, so I can just go to that particular cell and manually put in 0. And it looks like the alignment's a little bit off, so you can might as well highlight the whole thing and align everything to the middle. So I think we go to More and select the Align Center, Center Align, and here's our table. Now we want to include our graphs. So back to our Google Doc, we'll go to Insert, Chart, and then we're going to insert a chart from Sheets. So we'll select that, and it'll usually find the last sheet that you worked on. So you double click on that, and then it's going to find all the different graphs that are associated with that sheet. And so we created a bar graph, but I'm more interested in including the pie graphs. So let's select the adult, and you can also shift select the child serial and then go ahead and import. You can select one by one also. There's this link to the spreadsheet again, so in case you make any changes in your spreadsheet, it'll affect the document as well. So let's click import. These graphs are looking really large right now, so we can shrink that to appropriate sizes so that they can be side by side and easily comparable. And then I usually like to put a space in there, so if you can get your cursor in here somehow, I usually would put my cursor on the right side of that and arrow to the left and right. So my cursor is now blinking in the middle. A couple of spaces should do. And then I'm ready to write the essay. Okay, so that is the setup for your project number 5. That's how you do a contingency table or a two-way table in Google Sheets. We use pivot tables, and then from there you can create your bar graphs and your pie graphs. And you can do bar graphs if you want, or we can do pie graphs like we did over here, and either of those should be fine. Okay, so good luck with your project.